Imagine you've just moved into an old, quiet house, far from the chaos of the city. Everything feels calm, or at least, that's what you think. But what if the silence of the night begins to shift into sounds you can't see? Sounds that call your name from behind the window. What would you do when the terror can no longer be ignored? When you realize that something is waiting behind the window. This is the horror story that will chill your blood. The story of Alex and the whispers behind the window that never stop. My name is Alex, and I never imagined that my peaceful life would turn into a nightmare after moving to a small house on the outskirts of a town in Maine, America. As a writer looking for tranquility, I thought this old house was the perfect place for inspiration. It was isolated, quiet, and surrounded by dense trees. An ideal place to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. But I was wrong, terribly wrong. From the very first night in that house, something started to disturb me. I heard noises that shouldn't have been there. Perhaps it was just the wind blowing through the cracks of the old windows, I thought. But there was something different about this sound. It wasn't just the rustling of leaves or the whisper of the wind, it was a whisper. A soft, faint whisper that seemed to come from behind the window in my room, as if someone was standing out there, waiting, watching. That night, I couldn't sleep. Anxiety gnawed at me. I was sure it was just my imagination, perhaps fatigue after a long day of moving my things into the new house. But the longer I listened, the clearer the whisper became. I tried to calm myself with logic. There's nothing out there, I muttered to myself. It's just an old house creaking. However, as I closed my eyes and tried to ignore it, the whisper changed. It wasn't just a vague sound anymore, it became a voice I could almost understand, calling my name. Alex, the voice hissed from behind the tightly shut window. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. Who knew my name? And why were they outside? The next morning, I tried to forget the strange events of the previous night. I convinced myself that it was just a bad dream or a hallucination caused by exhaustion. Anyone who had just moved into an old house alone would feel a little uneasy, or so I told myself. But the following night, the whispers returned. This time, they were stronger, clearer. And not only that, something moved outside the window, a dark shadow that flitted quickly across the edge of my vision. I cautiously got up from bed, trying to peer out the window, but all I saw was darkness. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling, but there was no answer. Only an eerie silence. I began to feel terrified, but I still tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was just a wild animal or strong winds carrying sounds from far away. But the whispers didn't sound like they came from far away. They were too close, as if someone was standing right beneath my bedroom window. Days passed, and the whispers became more frequent, every night without fail. I began to feel paranoid. Not only that, I started to feel like I was being watched, even though I was alone in the house. Every time I approached the window, I felt as if something was out there, staring at me with an intensity that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Finally, I decided to learn more about this house. I went to the town library to search for records about it. That's where I found something horrifying, an old article about a family that lived in this house decades ago. They were all found dead under mysterious circumstances inside the house, and their cause of death was never determined. Their eyes, as the article described, were wide open, as if they had seen something truly terrifying just before they died. returned home with a sinking feeling. There was something wrong with this house, and I had to find out what it was. I started paying closer attention to every corner of the house, trying to find any unusual signs. As I examined each room, the feeling of being watched grew stronger, like invisible eyes were following my every move. That night, the whispers intensified. This time, the sound seemed to echo throughout the entire room, as if it came from the walls themselves. I could hear the hiss from all sides, enveloping me in an inescapable fear. Desperate, I tried recording the sound, but something even stranger happened. When I played back the recording, I heard nothing. No whispers, no strange noises, just an unnerving silence. But I knew what I had heard. It was real. And I started to feel as if this house was rejecting my presence. One night, I heard a door creaking, followed by heavy footsteps downstairs. I immediately got up and peeked out the bedroom window, hoping to catch sight of something. But again, there was only darkness outside. This time, I couldn't resist my curiosity any longer. I grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs. The air in the house felt colder than usual, bone-chilling. My footsteps echoed in the narrow hallway. I walked towards the living room but found no one. Then, suddenly, I heard a voice behind me, a whisper, very close. "Alex." I turned around, but no one was there. An overwhelming terror surged through me. Whatever had been disturbing me all this time was not ordinary. Something dark and malevolent was lurking in the shadows, and I had to find a way to rid myself of it before it was too late. The next morning, I decided to seek help. I contacted a well-known paranormal expert from the area. When he arrived at my house, his face turned serious immediately. "This house is unusual," he said, his voice heavy with caution. "There's something trapped here. Something trying to communicate with you." He began cleansing each corner of the house, lighting candles and burning incense. But when he approached the bedroom window where I always heard the whispers, the candle suddenly went out on its own, and the air around us became ice cold. He looked shocked. "There's something behind that window," he whispered. "Something you don't want to see." That night, I couldn't sleep. The words the paranormal expert had said haunted me. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep living in fear. At midnight, when the whispers started again, I stood up from my bed and approached the window. With trembling hands, I pulled back the curtain and looked out into the darkness. At first, I saw nothing, just the trees standing still in the wind. But as I looked closer, I saw a shadowy figure in the distance. Its face was indistinct, but its hollow eyes stared straight at me. The whisper grew louder, and I could hear my name being called repeatedly. I couldn't move, trapped in indescribable fear. The figure grew closer, and I felt the air around me grow heavy, suffocating. At that moment, I realized that whatever was whispering behind the window was not human. It was something far darker, more malevolent. And now, it wanted me. Just when I thought it was all over, a loud noise came from outside the house. The front door slammed open, and the figure I had seen outside the window disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. The whispers stopped. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. In the days following the incident, the house felt quieter. But I knew the calm was only temporary. Whatever had been behind the window wasn't gone. It was just waiting for the right time to return. And so, The story of the whispers that never stopped comes to an end. What awaits Alex behind the window might not be over yet. How about you? Would you dare to live in a house like this? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more horror stories, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming terrifying tales. And remember, on a quiet night, always be aware of what's behind the window. Maybe someone's calling you.